All right, and I think we're ready to go. Welcome, Jim.
Hello and good evening.
Well, you can't assume it's evening when other people are listening.
Hello and the time of day when you are listening to us.
I would assume most people are doing this in the evening because not a whole lot of folks have an hour in the middle of the day to keep up with us here.
They're letting us be their drive time companion.
I hope not. I hope if they're driving, they're not watching this.
Oh, good point. We are sort of visual, aren't we?
Yes. If this were the GrogCast, I'd be all over that. But given that, like if you're commuting on the DC Metro, for instance, and you've got us, on your tablet or phone or whatever, and you're watching while on the subway, make sure you share with your neighbor to spread the good gospel of dragging up the past here.
There you go.
But beyond that, like if you're in your car out on 395, no, put the phone away, quit watching.
Right.
People drive bad enough in DC. They don't need you watching dragging up the past to make it worse. So what do you? Is this more baby puke or baby poop kind of color scheme we got going on here?
Oof. I was wondering about that. I'm sure, without going too deeply into the arcane wonders of print, one wonders what color this original is. If it's this color or if it's got a softer glow to it in the original painting that they lithographed into this. As
it was printed, it's about this same color.
Is it really?
Yeah. I've got it over in the box across the room. It's not pretty. So
Whew.
it's certainly an interesting cover.
It is. Snake Lady, Orc Guards. I wonder what this knight did, but one does have to enjoy the clearly imprisoned Dwarven Jester.
Yes, with the Mind Flayer little voodoo doll puppet there.
Yeah, well, his bauble is the evil bauble because he is amusing the Snake Queen Lady.
Tell me, is it just me, or does this look like a far more svelte and slightly fantasied up Jabba the Hutt palace scene to you?
Well, that could be. Is this the alternative? Is this the women get even sort of a thing? That in a fantasy world, women will have their... Because she's a strange one, too. I assume that's a crown she's wearing with the heavy hanging baubles to either side, but my goodness. And of course, let it not be forgotten. One wonders why we're being asked to draw so much attention to the white-robed manservant and his bottle of wine and glass, because in truth, if you look at the color scheme and the framing, our eyes are drawn to him.
Yes.
Is he up to something?
Perhaps. The other bit of fun on this is that that's the chair is clearly on a bit of a raised altar, but the steps on the backside aren't 100% clear, sort of where they start and stop.
Yeah, you're right. What is, architecturally speaking, where is the guy with the wine bottle standing?
Yeah.
Or does that robe actually hit him in the knees?
Yeah, and let's face it, he could be standing wherever the hell he feels like. It is, in fact, a fantasy scene, that there's a limit to the kinds of physics that really we should try to apply here.
Well, but this is where, as we've discussed, to borrow your phrase, we've passed beyond the realm of the art on the Trapper Keeper.
Yes, we definitely have.
We're getting people who are paying for art. Yes. And there's a lot of detail thrown in this scene, and I'm a little curious as to how we had such an architectural failing there, but there it is.
I also, in the very left edge of the image behind the throne, is that another guard, or is that a statue or a carving of some sort? I'm just sort of curious.
I think it's supposed to be a guard. He's accoutred and of the same race as the guards bringing in the knight.
Yep.
But yeah, he's not well done in that context, because I don't know about you. I mean, I've been in my share of throne rooms, and by and large, the chairs are flush with the wall.
Yeah. Well, and look, the only throne rooms I've been in were mine. So, no, I'm kidding.
Okay, well, fair enough.
I am kidding. I've been in precious few throne rooms in my life. So, so 136,
Yes.
350 cover price. The classic dragon logo with the dragon typography there. The word magazine underneath has kind of moved around some over the years, but that iconic dragon font and typography has been with us for a decade at least at this point, and will be yet for another good number of years here. We've got cities that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the merchant class. You'll notice they've abandoned the fiction of calling them NPCs on the cover.
Yes.
And we're going to learn something about golems. Apparently, we're going to learn everything about golems. Not the golem from the Lord of the Rings, but
typically, some say golems.
I say it however you want.
Right. We'll work it out.
So, interestingly, we do not have an ice ad on the first interior page. We have Rocky and Bullwinkle role-playing party game.
Yeah.
I will say I've never in my life seen the game. I've only ever seen it in ads.
Yeah, nor I. This is, and you know what? And we're still doing this. And this is something that you could spend an entire episode talking about. Not everything makes a good role-playing game, or there are certain games and certain role-playing games in particular that are clever one-trick ponies.
Yes.
The greatest, I think the biggest example I can think of is Human-Occupied Landfill Hole.
Yes.
And Buttery Wholesomeness, the sequel. I've got them both. Some of my friends adored it right about at this time. And I'm here to tell it, later than this, but same basic principle. It's incredible fun to make the characters a couple times, and then there is zero value in the game.
Yeah.
And one wonders sometimes about, look at this, we're making the wacky, Snidely Whiplash. There we go. We're making the wacky Snidely Whiplash character, or we're making Rocky and Bullwinkle. Woo! And then what do you do?
Well, and that's the thing. Like as a role playing game, probably not all that much fun. But we hadn't progressed to the point where we are now at the advanced state of cooperative or coopetition kinds of game design that would have made a better tabletop game out of this than trying to make some sort of role-playing game out of it.
Yes.
Some sort of multi-headed, card-driven, goofing off around a simplistic map of Frostbite Falls kind of game where, Boris and Natasha are trying to accomplish one thing and Rocky and Bullwinkle are doing something else and Snidely's doing something else. And, you split that into a couple of cross purposes with your motivations. You probably have a decently fun little card game or card-driven board game. I just don't know as this would be a whole lot of fun as a role-playing game.
Yeah, no.
So, on the inside of the front cover, though, the City System box, the Forgotten Realms City System box.
Yes.
I've got this somewhere in here. I'm sure you've got at least one, probably 2 copies.
Yes.
Did you ever get one laminated?
No, mine's on PVC. Actually.
Okay.
Just because if you're going to set it up and play the way I played it with dry erase marker, you wanted to have it laminated.
So here's the follow-up question on this, though. Have you ever seen the entire thing laid out and put together? I don't know that I ever have, but I think it would be a pretty fun exercise to do sometime. To actually clear my garage enough that I could do it.
Because that's going to be big.
Oh yeah,
that's big.
Now, just so people understand, when they're talking 12 full-color poster-sized maps, the poster size that they are describing is 24 by 36.
Right. They're talking what? Yes.
So this is El Grande, but it's tough for people who weren't there at the time to fully appreciate just how immersed D&D was in the Forgotten Realms, in the level of detail everywhere throughout the realms. But you can't find travel logs of London that were as detailed as Waterdeep was.
Sure.
I mean, honestly, it may be the most meticulously described city in the history of books.
Well, I look. Let's look at it this way. The reason the game Lords of Waterdeep succeeded to the level that it did, if you take the skin of Waterdeep off that game, nobody cares about this fairly average worker placement game.
Yeah.
But because you put Waterdeep on it, which so many people are, let's just leave it at affectionate for,
Yep.
that this was, it would be, maybe at the last day when we get to see all things, to see how many adventures started, took place, and ended in Waterdeep. And I made this point to a buddy of mine when we were playing Gloomhaven. There's no Gloomhaven without Waterdeep.
Yeah.
The idea of a city that is this vibrant and is the setting for adventure. I mean, the one guy, as I've said many, many times on this podcast, the one guy that created all of fantasy in my mind is J.R.R. Tolkien. The one thing he stunk at was urban adventures.
Yeah.
And don't tell me about Gondor. He hated cities. He hated the urban life. Gondor isn't a city as much as it is a collection of villages that happen to go up.
Yeah, that's a good description.
And so to have a carefully realized fantasy place like this is and was really freaking cool.
Yeah. And what's crazy about it is, as detailed as Waterdeep is, and as often as it was used as the jumping off point for so many things, in not just in the adventures, but in the books, in the video games, and pretty much anything that happened in the Forgotten Realms, it's one of only about 10 locations that are that level of detailed up and down the realms.
Yes.
The Dale lands, meticulously detailed. I mean, there's so many places where you got so much of that. I was never a huge fan of Forgotten Realms because, again, I was a Mystara guy. I do have a bunch of the Realms stuff, and I do look back on it quite fondly. And if somebody wanted to sit down and play a Forgotten Realms campaign up on the northern end of the continent from Waterdeep going north, I'm all for it. Let's do it. That would be not just a nostalgia trip. That would be a solid adventure because of the world that Ed crafted there and that people built onto. I was never a completist. I was never an absolutist. I read some of the books, not all of the books. I read the original Icewind Dale trilogy. Honestly, the books that I enjoyed, Elaine Cunningham as an author wrote some great Forgotten Realms novels. And I enjoyed, and this is where she overlapped some because she wrote a few of them. I enjoyed the Harper's series of sort of one-shot novels in the series about the Harpers that are based out of Waterdeep and up in the northern part of the Forgotten Realms. That was the extent of my involvement with it. But I dig cities. I love them. And the city system was a godsend for me. I was flipping through that going, this is awesome!
Yeah, the only thing I will say about it, and this will be as far as I'll go in my criticism, if you looked at this box, we're looking at the telescope backwards.
Yes.
If you looked at this box on the shelf and saw city system, you might think offhand that you're getting a way to devise cities.
Yes. It was not well branded.
No, you will not do that with this. It really is it's the story, the detail of a city.
Yes.
And so I always wondered about that piece of it.
Yeah, it was a crappy name.
But a magnificent creature nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Here are our contents. We've got a layout challenge up here with some mismatched colors.
Those are good colors.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. Look, the white box over here you could justify as you're drawing attention to the publisher statement there, but this up here is just unconscionable. Sorry.
Yes.
No idea who Mike Cook was as the publisher, but we've still got, James Bond editing. And we have our UK correspondent, so Graham Morris is making an appearance here. And Betty Elmore on the production staff has got to be related, right?
Yeah, you'd think.
Somebody connected to Larry. But the that's what we got going there. I'm curious. Let's go see what it says about our cover. Ken Whiting's cover work, Holding Court. So it's a Lamia or Lamia Noble.
Yep.
From the Fiend Folio. Given to outbursts of senseless violence. All right, sounds good to me.
And Lamias are. I didn't think this. I didn't think I was in the presence of a lawful good person.
Oh, clearly not. Well, perhaps the guy in the white robe in the background.
Yeah, except he's bowing before whatever this is.
Yes.
And offering for a drink.
Similar layout issue. What the hell's going on with putting a space between every letter in here? This is bad kerning, people. This is just sloppy. That hurts. So.
All right.
And here's the announcement that Wormy's been canceled.
The end of Wormy.
So Wormy's gone to the worms. All right, did I stall long enough for you to look up the pop culture stuff?
Going in.
Okay.
I was good going in. We're talking about August of 1988, and so the question is, as always, what was the #1 song in August of 1988? No way you get this.
So this was the summer that I moved back from Europe to the States. And so there's 3 that I'm going to throw out here. One of them semi in jest. Did we just accidentally rickroll the entire audience? I'm legitimately curious where Rick Astley is on the charts, because he's got to be up there this summer. Where is Never Gonna Give You Up?
I'm looking through the whole summer of 1988. It is.
I mean, we should be looking in August of '88.
It is, but I'm looking through the whole thing. It is not there.
Really?
Not there.
Huh. That's kind of crazy. Okay. Never Tear Us Apart from In Excess, or is it Faith from George Michael?
Monkey from George Michael would be coming up the next month.
Okay.
But it is Steve Winwood's Roll With It.
Really?
From July all through August.
Wow, that was
4 weeks.
Of 88, huh?
It crushed it. Never Gonna Give You Up is 1987.
Really?
Yep.
That was off by a whole year there. That's unusual.
And then, George Michael's Monkey would be on for 2 weeks and would then be replaced by Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah, I knew Sweet Child of Mine was in there, but I thought that was further into the winter.
Man, I did not realize. So what am I doing here? I'm finishing up my master's degree in August of 1988. I'm on a little break there. And so, yeah, man, I just didn't realize that Steve Winwood just crushed that entire month.
Yeah, and the thing is, I really, like, I can sort of hum the song in my head, but it's just not one that, really jumps off the page and says, oh my God, I got to hear this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of crazy.
So like I said, there was no way I felt you were going to be able to get it. How about movie? What is the #1 movie? This is one a lot of folks would have known. I'll tell you that this was the month of The Last Temptation of Christ. Not the #1 movie.
Nowhere near #1.
It was the remake of the 1958 Blob. But this movie actually may have been, I'll check, this was one of the biggest movies of the year. Released August 12th, 1988.
We've already established that Rattlin' Hum was never going to be the #1 movie of anything.
Right.
Crap. Scrooged isn't until Christmas time. Man. I was legitimately going to try and make a go of this one, but I don't think I can pull it off. Was it like a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel?
There was one of them during that month, 4, but it would have been beaten by this one for sure.
Summer of '88. Cocktail. I don't know. What?
Young Guns.
Oh. And I jokingly threw out Young Guns 2 on a previous one of these, just being a
Yes, you did.
smartass. So, okay.
Yes, this was the mighty team effort that was Emilio Estevez, a young Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, Charlie Sheen.
Yes.
You know, just a whole a veritable cat, a who's who of young hip talent. Then in the summer of 1988, let us not forget Dermot Mulrooney.
Yeah, Casey Simasco.
Yes.
I remember a friend of mine jokingly saying, "Why didn't because this was a few years after Red Dawn, saying why didn't they just call it Red Sunset?" So, same concept.
So those were our two.
All right. Urban Adventures. We've got a 5-article block on some urban adventures there. We've got some other features. So we've got a fiction story coming up. We're going to go through the Looking Glass, talking about some convention fun there. The Game Wizards, we're going to talk about some espionage games. And then we're going to get a couple of reviews on some cities. So this should be kind of interesting. Of interest, the National Game Convention. The month of Gen Con of August is upon us, and the Gen Con Game Fair will soon follow. This was the co-branded Gen Con and Origins together.
Oh, yes. I see that there, sure enough.
And you had fun with that one, I'm sure.
Oh, goodness. These were... Trying to remember if I have any particular memories. I don't think I do, but, in what is the National Game Convention, 1975? Yeah.
All right, we're skipping through the forum stuff because we dragged this out for too long anyway.
All right.
So interestingly, the little graphic up here, I'm pretty sure this was a build out of the city graphic from the Mystara maps that they used. But this was when Dragon had started sort of theming the issues a little better, and so you would get kind of this almost a second cover on what was the key thematic feature within each of the issues. And so this is a decent looking little city. This is certainly evocative of a fantasy metropolis without being overly committal to any particular era or inspiration. And
not that I'm judging.
Yeah.
Not that I'm judging. But have we stumbled onto the some sort of island of Eros for men?
Perhaps.
I don't notice any women.
Upper right corner on the balcony. Is that Juliet?
Oh, there we go. There's one. We have So the ratio is bad.
Yes. So
the ratio's bad.
So it's a wargaming convention.
Yes, with jugglers.
I'm trying to figure out what. Well, you've seen what I've done to you guys with scheduling, so
fair.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the lighting. That our dude up front is sort of monochromatic there.
He's magical,
I guess. So is the guy on the front right, who's we barely get his face.
I think the guy at the far left, Lionel Richie, I'm calling him, and the guy at the far right, they're magical in some ways.
Okay, I'll go with it. All right. Building blocks, city style. So a city generation system.
Okay, here's the thing. For those who've not heard me give this spiel, my PhD is in late medieval, early modern history, focus on law. I work in government, so I've spent a lot of time studying cities. This sort of thing drives me bananas. I'll go back to Brandt's principle of Dragon magazine. There's nothing so good, nothing so complicated, nothing so lofty that we can't slap a table onto it. And I look at this and go, this isn't how you build cities.
No.
You don't.
It shouldn't be.
If you are building, I get it. If it's a little, I've come upon this hamlet at the corner of a thing, and what has it got in it? And you really want to do it that fast, go right ahead. But if you don't know what's in a city, stop role-playing and read a damn book.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it's like, if you don't honestly know what is in a city, if you can't figure out what is supposed to appear in it, whatever. Hey, if you're into Arabian Nights, or if you're into Western Europe, or if you're into Asia, study something. Don't go to a chart and say, okay, I rolled 60%. Oh, I got a storehouse. Well, where's that going to be?
Yeah.
Where are you going to put it? Why is it there? You know, I do cities for a living now. And one of the great joys of visiting the city of Milwaukee is to tour it by boat, because you can go along the rivers and see why the city evolved along its rivers. That doesn't happen on a chart. It happened for an organic reason, and your city should reflect that. Don't do this. This is bad. Look away.
So here is where I will offer the exact counterpoint, the exact reason to support what you're saying. That is the 100% polar opposite of how Milwaukee may have evolved up and down the rivers, and virtually every other city has evolved in a sensible fashion. Pay a visit to Fayetteville, North Carolina sometime, and drive around a couple of the main roads, and imagine yourself driving up and down those main roads thinking that the city planner's office basically had one of these tables in their office.
Right.
Or converted it to a dartboard on a Lazy Susan and just would spin it and throw darts. What should we put in this block of Ramsey Street? Wham! Pawn shop. All right, we got a pawn shop there. What are we going to put next to it? Spin it. Wham! Church. All right, we got a church next to the pawn shop. What's next? Let's spin the wheel. Walmart. Okay, good. What are we going to put next to Walmart? There's a daycare. You know, it's just... Fayetteville is what happens when you abandon any pretense whatsoever of urban planning, and somebody shows up and says, "Hey, I want to build something." All right, we don't care.
But even in those, because yes, I've observed that in the South. When I was at Historicon one year, which was in Frederick, Virginia, and I understood that that's right, Fredericksburg. Frederick is in Maryland. That's it. Yeah, I was in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and the thing that blew me away was I was staying at one of the Comfort Inn and Suites, and there was a Waffle House nearby where I had never been. So Jim said, well, I'll go to the Waffle House. That should be fun. So I walk out of my hotel room. I walk on the sidewalk. I get I cleared the property line for the Inn and Suites, and the sidewalk stopped. And I went, what the actual heck? What just happened? Where did the sidewalk? Oh, this guy decided he didn't need one. The next guy down, a hardware store, he had one. And, of course, the Waffle House had one. That was one of the weirdest things for a Yankee like me to see. Go, well, you just don't cotton to that kind of government interference, do you?
Yeah.
But even if you look at this very Byzantine city that they show in the drawing, even without zoning, there is a logic to where things are built.
Yes.
People wanted to be up on these hills. That was the desirable area. We sort of inverted modern patterns, which are to get outside the city. The closer you were to the center was the more desirable stuff.
Yeah.
Down on the waterfront, that was the poor stuff. You know, and that's you were down on the wharf. Those are storehouses. Those are manufactories. Those are, there's a reason for this. Study it, learn it. An article about why cities are the way they are would be infinitely more valuable.
Interestingly, there is a very solid cities book that you used to be able to pick up in that front section where they've got sort of things permanently on sale at Barnes & Noble. That was about ancient and medieval cities by the great fantasy author L. Sprague de Camp, and is a fantastic historical look at cities throughout time. It's a great book.
And you know what? I'm looking at the bibliography, skipping ahead a little bit here. And they've got Joseph and Francis G's Life in a Medieval City, one of the standard introductory texts that we give undergraduates to learn about medieval social life and city life.
So I'm just zooming in so people can get a look at the charts while we've been sitting here bellowing about how awful charts are. We thought we'd at least give people a chance to look and see. So
I suppose.
You know, I love that there's a chance that the building. So you're going to roll. And then there's a second chance that the building exists, So if you roll the 78 and the chance that the building exists comes up negative for the storehouse, do you have the storehouse without the building?
Yeah.
Like, is there just a pile of crap sitting there?
It's a pile of things. Well, George Carlin told us it's all for a stuff place.
I guess. So there's the artisan sub table. The building's in an Oriental port city. When everybody outside of universities first started hopping online in the early 90s, and everybody was dialing up through AOL, I remember somebody had created a Mac compatible random city generator that you could download and run, and it would generate essentially random stuff like this, but it would generate, you would tell it how many sections of the city you wanted, and it would generate stuff within those sections of the city. So you had the slums, you had the upper class area, you had the merchant area, you had sort of the dock area kind of stuff. And so it was themed a little bit. Now it was still up to you to kind of map it all, but at least it gave you a decent little amount of info to work with. All right, so here's our bibliography you were just referring to.
Yep.
Life in a Medieval City, the Medieval Town.
Read these books. Move on.
I would say read the El Sprague de Camp one too. That's not half bad.
No, that sounds like a much better choice.
Yeah. All right, we got the Hyborian War, Imperial Conquest in the Age of Conan. All right, Reality Simulations Inc. You're gonna call yourself Reality Simulations, and we're gonna deal with Conan.
Ask us about Duel Master game also.
Sure.
Don't judge. Don't judge.
It's just a game. We promise. The Nightmare on Elm Street game. People wonder why Victory Games went out of business.
I don't know if it's good form for one podcast to talk about another podcast, but definitely check out any of the articles that have been written about the Historicon panel that was held this Historicon in July. The topic was SPI.
Yes.
And they had the real people there. The people, if you don't believe them, you got nobody.
Yeah.
It was all the principal players. And the thing, there's so much, and the only reason I'm just, first of all, do it. If you're into board gaming, you must listen to this because it teaches so much. But number two, it was amazing to hear them say the only things we could really sell were World War II and Cold War Gone Hot.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that sold. Everything else SPI did was essentially an argument with the money people.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is that today you can't sneeze in a war game store without hitting 10 Civil War games.
Right.
And like I don't enjoy Civil War games. They don't do anything for me. It's just not a period I'm a big fan of. Same thing with Napoleonics. There's Napoleonics coming out the ears. And which is, wonderful for you, but again, muskets just aren't my thing. Cold War Gone Hot is I'm all over it, right? Send them my way.
Yeah, no, it is and wrapping this all back, what was the pitch meeting for this other than, obviously, as we said in the earlier portion, we were on A Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Yeah. Well,
so
and the crazy thing about it is, if the point of this is to expand the size of the pie from which hobby gamers are trying to eat, why are you advertising it in Dragon? Why aren't you advertising it in Fangoria? Now, they might have also, we're not going to sit here and leaf our way through a Fangoria issue, but that's, it strikes me as this is the wrong audience to advertise that to, because, if you're a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, you're going to buy it anyway, and if you're not, who gives a rip? But you're not going to find that many of them in Dragon.
And I swear, I look at these things as opportunity cost. I mean, Victory Games should have known what it was. Victory Games should have known who its market was, and should have realized that. And I think you're right. I think what they're doing here is they're chasing the mass market. But if that's what you're doing, you are costing me. This is the company that gave us Vietnam. It's the company that gave us Ambush. It's the company that gave us Civil War. Countless games.
NATO next war in Europe.
Right. that are on people's short list of best games ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this right here, this flaming pile of dog crap, to me, the reason I feel so strongly about it is because, not because it is what it is. You want to play this, fine, I don't care. But it cost us another game.
Just real quick, while I'm leafing ahead on the Blood Bowl minis on the next page, look this one up on Board Game Geek. I'm curious how many stars it's got. It can't be more than 2.
Oh, sure, we'll do.
All right, so we have the Blood Bowl ad, so Blood Bowl is in full swing. And on a previous on the GrogCast, we had our buddy Matt Forbeck show up on the GrogCast one time, and we brought him on to talk about the Shotguns and Sorcery the Kickstarter that was going on at the time, because that's sort of his world there and what he was doing with that. But we did have him tell us a couple of war stories from elsewhere in his history of gaming and game design and being in the business. And it's fascinating to hear him tell the story of Blood Bowl when he was working at GW back in the 80s in England, and sort of lucking into that job. He said basically it's a bunch of Brits taking what they thought American football was and ratcheting that up to 11. And he said it was hilarious for me as an American who knows football. And I mean, Matt's from Wisconsin. He's a homer for you. And so for one of us to look at what other people think of one of our quintessential sports and how they think they're parodying it, and they're probably getting more right than they realize, but some of the stuff is just so off kilter, you kind of wonder where it comes from. So,
man, yeah, the Nightmare on Elm Street, designed by Rob Reyer.
Okay.
His only other game being Desert Shield, a Gulf Strike expansion module.
Okay.
Co-designed with Mark Herman, so there's a name. But
Gulf Strike, not this, right?
What's this? No, yeah, Mark Herman did not co-design A Nightmare on Elm Street. This would appear to be Rob's sole design credit, Mr. Reyer, I should say, because I'm sure he's well into his 60s now, based on the photograph here. This received a cumulative, with the 53 ratings, 4.1.
Holy crap!
Well, look, based on the fact that some people like every game they have.
Yeah.
Some people are utterly kind, but believe me, there's a lot of stop signs if you look through the reviews.
Let's make this clear to the audience. That's 4.1 on a 10-point scale, not a 5-point scale.
Yes.
But still, that's at least twice as high as I thought it was going to be. No.
I would have guessed. Where I'd have guessed, I would have guessed it higher, only because the way BGG weights things. While it's true that a few bad scores can keep a game from achieving, a few good scores can keep a game from being identified as the dumpster fire that it clearly is.
Perhaps. All right, let's move on off of Blood Bowl. All right, law enforcement in the AD&D game urban setting.
Yes.
So here you go, Mr. Legal Guy. Modifiers for court decisions. So I guess we're still rolling dice to see what we come up with here. Sentences for felonies. So for the crime of assassination, your typical sentence would be public execution. Your typical fine would be the forfeiture of assets. So the criminal's family must pay the fine or lose all family assets and be charged with the debt. I was about to say, generally when you're publicly executed, you're forfeiting your assets as a part of that.
I don't know where to go on this one, because I actually feel this one a little more strongly than I did about the city thing, and I felt pretty strongly about that.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is what I know probably better than any topic that isn't associated with Napoleon. And the evolution of urban law, the evolution of law, period, really, but that specifically, because look, ultimately fantasy, D&D, comes out of some sense of the medieval. Whether that be Japanese medieval, whether it be Chinese medieval, or Western European, or East Asian, whatever it is, or
pre-gunpowder, basically.
Yeah, it's all pre-gunpowder world. Now, if you want to make up your own legal code, what do I care? It's your game. Just make sure you tell the players what it is before you make them. Oh, you violated that rule. Otherwise, it winds up like you're playing that game from MASH called Cranko.
Yeah.
where you're making up the rules as you go.
It's Calvin ball.
Right. Otherwise, you're playing Calvin ball with people. But the legal systems of the Middle Ages are entirely inverted for Mars.
Yeah.
The level of the punishments are deeply centered around property crime. Most violent offenses are actually much less punished than you'd imagine. They are very often, depending on where you are, compoundable by cash.
Which is the whole point of Saxon Weirgeld.
Exactly. Now, that's not uniform. That's not everywhere, but it's common, and it persists well into the early modern era.
It persists today with the idea of a civil trial, where civil liability results in a financial punishment.
How did we ultimately catch O.J. for the murder of his wife? The criminal trial exonerated him, but the civil trials put a sack on him like you can't even believe.
Yeah.
And that all comes from that. But even take a look at something as basic as, how do you deal with crime? What happens when a crime is committed? We know we have police. They come. Well, there's no police. There's a watch. But the watch's job is to stop external people from coming in.
Yeah.
It's not Quincy M.E. It's not Law and Order, Special Victims Unit. And so
CSI Waterdeep.
Right. Yeah. And this is goofy. The sentence, and I'm just looking at some of these things. The sentence for a theft is life slavery. The criminal is owned for life by the city. What nonsense is that?
Yeah. I imagine you've got a pretty significant number of slaves that you now have to feed and clothe and house.
See, this is the thing, and God knows I'm not getting anywhere near slavery as a topic, but suffice to say that's utter nonsense.
Yeah.
And they don't even list the crime for which, whenever I'm role-playing, you're on notice, folks, if you ever come and hang out with me and we role-play something that has a medieval code of law, the one thing y'all are going to get in the biggest amount of trouble for is vagrancy. Because you're the brave adventurers going from town to town. I got news for you. Unless people know who you are, where you're from, and if somebody here can vouch for you, you don't get to stay.
Yeah, you're Rambo.
There you go. You wind up getting Rambo'd, run to the edge of town. Because nobody wants you on their charity rolls.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you show up at the inn and you pay to, camp out at the inn for the night, that's different. But
you stand the night. Where are you going? You're here tonight, but where are you going tomorrow? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So the other thing that's missing here, given the medieval nature of things, we haven't even crossed over to the fact that civil and religious law were indistinguishable. And so there is no crime of heresy in here.
Correct.
Good luck insulting the local deity.
Well, but the other thing is that there are entire canon courts.
Yeah.
That would have, if you, whether it be a Judeo-Christian god or one of the other gods, I suspect there's a separate legal code of canon law. So this article is deep-fried nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh, and one last thing. Jail, a concept that does exist throughout the Middle Ages, typically GAOL becomes our word, isn't a place where you're sent as a penitent. It's not a penitentiary. It's a place to hold you till we can try you.
Yeah.
There's no concept of a penitentiary. There just isn't. Yes, kings and monarchs have dungeons, but those are very specific things for very specific purposes. They're not jails in the sense that we think of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes. So this article,
and there's certainly no concept of rehabilitation whatsoever.
No.
What I always tried to figure out is, why doesn't every single medieval police department have a ridiculously high-level cleric on staff that, when it comes time to, call the witnesses to the, the assassination or the murder, that the murder victim isn't paraded into the court because you just put a raised dead spell on him and he goes, yep, that's the bastard that stabbed me through the heart.
Now, you Have you seen Altered Carbon on
Yes.
Netflix?
Yes.
That's the whole premise, right?
Yes, it is.
Wake him up and ask him who killed him.
Yeah.
All right, I'm better now.
You sure?
Yeah, we'll see what they bring next.
Well, they're bringing us a RuneQuest ad. Picks up where others leave off. If you recall our previous episode with the letter of, why don't you guys cover RuneQuest? Is it because nobody would ever want to play D&D again?
Yeah, well, these are expensive books too. My goodness.
The Merchant, an NPC class with cash. All right, nobody was calling them NPCs, but let's. A haggler, a bargainer, a hawker, a vendor. I love that we had the level titles forever, and while they were functionally useless, I do kind of miss them.
Oh yeah, no, they were fun. I mean, as absurd as I find this particular thing, this is fun.
Yeah,
this is fun. I think it is very interesting to try to play a class. I mean, I played an entire character in was it Morrowind? It was the old one before that, Daggerfall. I played a merchant in Daggerfall.
How'd you do? How'd you do?
Pretty well. It was actually a pretty good time until I got turned into a werewolf.
So we do have our mandatory bad chart down here. The appraising percentage starts to get a little wonky the further down you go. So they needed to align those a little bit better. You could fix this with a highlighter and sort of highlighting alternate columns, but they're going to be a little wavy. So I know you're waiting for the ad on the next page.
Yes, I am.
Didn't you guys just have this on the table not too long ago?
We actually had it in the tabletop simulator on the PC.
Oh, okay.
Where you can go get you one. But, oh my goodness, is this still a good game.
What does this go for on the BGG marketplace? It's got to be a couple hundred.
Wow, I don't even know. Let's see if anybody's selling one right now.
Yeah.
But, I forgot how good a game this is. I know it's not what do they got? It's got a 7. It averages a 7, which is the result of people fighting back and forth with it.
Quite frankly, that's probably about right.
Looks like an American in good condition. Let's see all, because it looks like we may have some outliers. Yes. Good condition between $80 and $100.
Okay. So, but it's a well-respected game even today. People like it.
It is. Look, folks, this game is fun. It is fun. I loved it. Very evocative, simple combat system, and as I said in a post, it's more a war game than a lot of the stuff that's being foisted off as a war game these days. It was designed by war gamers. It was trying to simulate the conflict at the start of The Empire Strikes Back. Nothing wrong with fantasy or science fiction in wargaming. It just should be a war game, and this definitely is. The one thing I particularly enjoyed, it makes liberal use of mega hexes, which I first remember from Steve Jackson's The Fantasy Trip, Melee, Wizard, and all that. But they play a significant role in the ranging of weapons. It plays a little longer than I think I'd like it to, but man, my son and I had a blast. This is a good game.
Moving on slightly. So there's our merchant level purchasing goods. Experience the adventure for Dungeon Magazine. Again, a solid magazine full of nothing but adventures. And we'll probably never review it on here because it wouldn't take us that long. Room for a Night. So here are your inns and taverns. So
how come you got to make me angry 3 times?
Because we're only into the third of 5 articles.
This is... The next one's not going to make me as mad. This one, too. Now, fine. You want to... I mean, okay, where are you? I'm looking at... Obviously, I think, as folks know, I'm looking at a different one. Go to the next page.
The Tavern Drinks?
Yeah. Are dumb people playing D&D?
Okay. You've been around long enough to know the answer to that question.
How dumb do you have to be to know it's more expensive by the tavern you're in?
Because there's still those min-max munchkin rules lawyers that want to haggle over the price of bourbon versus brandy.
If that person is in your group, take them outside and suggest you're going to have a smoke and a talk. Then go back in, lock the door, and never let them in.
Sure thing. Personally, I think if you're in the tavern having a drink, you should be playing a copy of Red Dragon Inn by Slugfest Games.
Yes. Or what was the name of it? The one by Jeff Finkelstein with the that's based on Swashbuckler.
I know the one you're talking about. It's not as much fun as Red Dragon Inn.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
No. Come on, man. Pookie? When you can sick Pookie on people from across the inn?
I understand what you're saying. I don't know. Because I love Swashbuckler. I've still got my copy.
Yeah. There's also a fantastic tavern brawl game. This is... We're getting down to high-level nerd obscurity here. The Joe Devers Lone Wolf and Cub series of books. Fun books. Or not Lone Wolf and Cub, but Lone Wolf. The series of books in the world of Magnamund. There was the Magnamund Companion that was published for that was essentially the gazetteer for the game world. And pretty snazzy, pretty fun. There is a tavern brawling game in there that plays up to like 9 players. I mean, it scales, and they give you the rules for which characters to add in which order based on the number of players that you're adding. And so you're trying to, sort of, basically a food fight breaks out, and then everybody's off on their own, and it's an every man for themselves sort of battle royale. But what was great about this, again, little throwaway cutout game in the back of essentially an unnecessary guidebook to a series of choose your own adventure books. But in this giant tavern brawl game, you had up to 9 characters, every one of which had a cross-purpose motivation to somebody else in the brawl that kept everybody trying to accomplish their own goal separate from anyone else. And while none of them were directly diametrically opposed, at any point in time, you've probably got two mortal enemies and 2 faithful allies until you end up on the wrong side of the bar and everybody flips because now you're a little too close to accomplishing your goal and everybody's going to try to stop you. And it's a great tavern brawling game for anybody that can track that down. The tavern brawling game in the back of the Magnamund Companion. Got to go find it. It's great.
I'm playing Dragon and Flagon.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Here are your tavern foods. Guess what? They cost more when you get to a classier joint.
Uh-huh.
And you can't get lamb at a 1-star inn.
I guess not.
Or lobster.
Nope. Mm-mm. Wait. Oh, now at my inn, which is on the seaside, and we have lobsters lying around like junk on the sea.
Yeah.
I give you lobster, and you resent it because you're upper class and you think they're garbage food.
Yes.
Now what?
Yes.
Because that's actually what was the case before the 19th century.
Yeah. So, our Sky Galleons of Mars game.
Now, see, it's an ad, but oh my goodness, Frank Chadwick, you deity among men.
You magnificent bastard.
You magnificent bastard. There you go. What a great, fun, silly, crazy game that never quite freaking worked. But that's okay.
Here in Raleigh, we have the Triangle Simulation Society.
Yes.
Big minis gaming community here.
Mm-hmm.
No idea why it's such a big minis gaming community here, but 2 times a year they take over the local Hilton with the sort of mini convention center they got attached to that. And they take up several very large banquet and auditorium rooms. And with their tables full of whatever, there is 30 years later, 35 years later, reliably going to be a Sky Galleons of Mars game.
Cool.
Every time.
Somebody's... Yeah, they have them regularly at Historicon. There's a group.
Yep. It may be the same group. we're in driving distance from here. It could well be the same group.
Not like it's that far up, though.
Yeah.
No, I get that. Yeah, you're right.
50 ways to foil your players.
This is fun.
You're not going to hate on this one?
I'm not going to hate on it.
Out of reflex?
I think I'm always interested. I have always been, give me a suggestion. Give me a clever suggestion that maybe I can use. Do I want them all? Do I think they're all the E? No.
Yeah.
But some of them are silly fun. I was looking at a couple of them.
The
Absolutely.
ignoble noble.
This is what, I don't know what it, I don't think what it has to do with necessarily, the Middle Ages or urban living, but like for example, number 10, the doorman. Whether a bouncer at a tavern or a gate guard at a keep, the doorman will never simply let the PC walk through the door. Great idea. You don't think about it, but there's always that guy, right? Good, simple idea. Jealous lover, the catty lover, all this.
The dandy.
All these things, find little pieces of a story to throw at someone as if they bumped them in a blind alley. That's great.
I like the would-be adventurer, number 22 down there. That is Buddy from The Incredibles.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely.
Finally, an advanced Dungeons and Dragons game for everyone except the truly serious.
Uh-huh.
Hey, it's Tom Wham. You can tell it's Tom Wham just from the artwork.
Yes, you can. Yeah, here's the thing. You don't get to call your game hysterically funny, okay? You just let us decide that, please.
The flip side of that is, how many Tom Wham games did you ever play that weren't hysterically funny?
After 5 plays?
Well, keep in mind that any Tom Wham game is improved by the presence of alcohol.
I understand. This game is, having played this game, it's not funny after 5 plays.
Okay. But how many people play Tom Wham games more than 5 times? Aside from King of the Tabletop and maybe the Quest for the Emperor's Treasure. File 13 is really funny the first 2 times, and after that, the joke's over.
Right.
This is probably one of those that, the joke's over after the first 2 or 3 times through, and you're good. And then after that, you don't need to play it anymore. But it is hysterically funny the first 2 or 3 times, and after that,
I feel like, and for the record, I feel exactly the same way about Munchkin.
Well, so here's what I would say in Munchkin's defense. Every time you add one of the expansions, you've now added +1 to the hilarity factor that will eventually start to erode. So you start swapping out their endless array of expansions, and some of the humor is maintained. All right, so there's our different 50 foils, and then we have now we're off into fiction land, and we have boobs. There you go. They know the audience they're playing to, don't they?
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yes.
All right, we're gonna skip the fiction, because it doesn't really matter. Arcane lore, 1 charge is never quite enough. So what do you need to recharge your magic items? Thought part of it was...
I would have thought this would have been covered in the rules. I don't understand what they're doing that's different.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure either.
Oh, they're giving us a spell to charge and... Okay. All right. I mean, to me, it's a base. I think you could have covered this with the enchantment rules in the DM's guide, but okay, fine.
Sure.
And I'm not on fire for this, but I get it.
To just recharge things, re-enchant things. All right, so the Daily Planet Gaming Supplement Lucky Number Edition. Mayfair is hiding an ad in in something that's intended to look like a newspaper, and that's not a half bad way to do things.
No.
Because you get the whole company update in one ad right there. That's not bad. So you get some Plastic Man stats. You get their summer convention schedule. So
I just wanted to observe, this is going to come up again. The Mecca in Milwaukee is actually an acronym, so it should all be capitalized.
Okay, sure. Captain Nitpicky.
That's me. Oh, you do not get to talk.
So this is kind of cool for me. Over on the right side, I don't care about the Sage Advice stuff. We'll go look at Cavaliers and Paladins in a minute, just for you. The Gazetteer series. Here is not only the Gazetteers, but where they belong on the map compared to each other.
That is very cool.
If you think back to your X1 map, your Isle of Dread map, with all those sort of throwaway countries that they just kind of filled in the map with, this is them in immense detail. You want to talk about overly detailed stuff? These areas are mapped out at 8 miles to a hex. Yeah, the entire world is mapped out at 8 miles to a hex, with the detail that goes with all of that, which is insane. But that's what you get here. Um, and they don't even have them all on here because you're missing a couple of the ones that are hanging off the bottom of the map. You're also missing the Dawn of the Emperors box set that has both Fiatus and Alphatia in there. So these are some of the coolest, most coveted products in the D&D world, especially the old BECMI world. And the vast majority of them are now available print on demand through DriveThruRPG. So you can go see what you've been missing. These are awesome. In case that wasn't clear.
I sensed your fondness for them.
Yeah, well, the Shadow Elves hasn't been published yet. Dawn of the Emperors hasn't been published yet. That's coming in another year. But these have been going for 3, 4, 5 years now. They started with Karameikos and then built on from there. Obvious historical parallels along the way. So Karameikos is very much sort of Poland, Lithuania, Romania kind of area. So it's Eastern Europe, but it's medieval Eastern Europe. Whereas the Five Shires, I mean, look, they're your halflings, but they're well done halflings. Minrathad Gills, right? Hello, Venice. The Emirates of Yalarum. Come on, you can figure out what this is, right? Which, of course, are wedged in between Fiatus, which is sort of Roman-inspired with a couple of other flavors filtered in. So you go north from Rome to land in the desert, and then go north from there to end up in the northern reaches, which were the Vikings. Ecology wasn't their strong suit, but it was okay. It's a ton of fun. Cavaliers and Paladins. Do they go berserk in combat?
You know. Wow. Grand Duchy of Karameikos, $5. Look at that.
That's about what I paid for it.
It's all right.
So
yeah, back when though?
Oh, 86, 87.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah. All right. Here we go again, talking about what things can or cannot do. See, because here's the thing. Down. Well, let's see here. Do Cavaliers and Paladins get 12-sided or 10-sided hit die? That's a rules question, right? Yes. I don't know how you missed the answer to that, but
because it tells you in the answer the 12-sided listing in Unearthed Arcana is an error. So they are correcting an error in the rule book.
Oh, it's the Cavaliers piece that they're fixing.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, because I was like, who is confused that Paladins get a 10-sided die?
Yeah. So they are correcting an error that was in the officially published rules. And I think I would have to... I'm too lazy to walk across the room and look. I'm pretty sure I pen and inked my copy of Unearthed Arcana to correct this.
Very good.
Because I do remember this. Yeah. So... let's move on. So Sage Advice is all these different character class rules. What happens when Paladins lose their exalted status? Do they become Cavaliers or just fighters? So Fallen Paladins become Cavaliers, but probably disgraced ones regardless of their alignment.
Yeah, it's like that's maddening to me. I forget the whole Cavalier side because I ignored it, basically.
Yes.
I mean, Paladins just go off and become Fallen Paladins. That's the whole thing. I refer you to Lancelot, sir.
Yeah.
I mean, just, God almighty, guys. This isn't complicated. What happens to a Fallen Paladin? There's a template for this.
It's too bad Paladins can't be female, because then you could have a Fallen woman as a Paladin.
That'd be nice. Wait a minute. Hang on. No. I printed that out and I put it on the wall of my office. What are you kidding?
It's the old Richard Lederer English book one where a kid in one of his papers that he turned in had talked about the woman tripped and lay prostitute at the bottom of the stairs.
There you go.
Instead of prostrate. And the margin comment from the instructor was, "My dear sir, you must learn to tell the difference between a fallen woman and one who has merely slipped." English language humor there. Let's move on. The Golem's Craft. Or Golem. I don't care how you say it. Once you build one, it isn't easy.
I shouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, I mean, if it was easy, you would need a magic user to do it.
Right.
That's kind of the idea. I do like that you can make a straw golem. Or a rope golem.
Notionally you can make it out of anything, right?
For all your S&M needs, you can have a leather golem.
Well, that's some people do.
What exactly is the point of the flesh golem? Unless it's there for the same S&M purposes as the leather golem.
Other than being profoundly creepy, I got nothing.
Yeah, I can't figure that one out. I mean, why do you have the pile of flesh laying around out of which to manufacture said golem? That just seems a little off-putting. Joke seen on social media recently. Wizard to rogue. I need a hand with something, and I need no questions asked. Okay, what do you need? I need a human skull. Okay, no questions asked, right? Opens his bag. Here's 9 to choose from.
Right.
That's where you go to get the parts for your flesh golem. So lots of rules about this. You would think for how to build a golem, we'd get visually more than 2 small charts and 1 piece of artwork. You would think we could do a little more than that. And this is also interesting. The footnotes take up like 1/3 of the article.
Yes.
If you've got to footnote your article that much from all the rules lawyering,
you might want to do a rework.
Yeah. City State of the Invincible Overlord, still around. I believe that's the copy that I have, is the box with Gary's introduction. Skipped ahead too far. Through the Looking Glass, so we've got minis that you can actually see, which is nice. Those guys over on the right are from the Warhammer Fantasy Regiments box. It was a set of plastic minis that I believe there were about 10 or 12 each of Wood Elves, Dark Elves, Skaven, Orcs, Dwarves, and I'm missing one. Goblins? Probably the Gobos. Because there were 6 total. Dark Elves, Wood Elves, Dwarves, Orcs, Skaven.
According to the article, it's Dwarves, Dark Elves, Skaven, Orcs, and Goblins.
Yeah. Okay. My box, we've talked about it on a previous broadcast, the Orcs Nest in London. That's where I bought my box of them during the move that summer. And while I was staying at my grandparents' house is when I painted them all up. And my grandmother, of course, thought I was nuts because she had no real appreciation of the arts. I kid. What the hell are you painting all those little critters for? But the reason I bought the box is the same problem you always had growing up trying to play with the minis, is that when you buy a box of minis, you get one of everything, which means you have one of everything when you need a horde of orcs to be attacking your party. You don't have a horde of orcs. What you have is a horde of single-use magic user figures. And you needed a horde of orcs. And so after this, I had a horde of orcs. I had a horde of Skaven. I had a horde of whatever. So that was much handier. But I picked up a whole bunch of Warhammer minis in London that summer because they looked much cooler than the official TSR minis, which is all I was able to find up until that point. And so who wouldn't want the barbarian elf with the sword that's twice as tall as he is? Those just looked cool, and they were fun to paint. And after that, I had a whole bunch of new minis that I could use for the stuff I wanted to work on. But most importantly, I now had a horde of orcs. So I had those figures. How many of these did you have? Did you have the Goblin War Giant from Grenadier Models?
Oh yeah, that, and I will absolutely agree with the commentator that thing was really hard to put together.
TSR previews. So what's coming up from TSR in publication here? Gaz, and they left the number off for the northern reaches. So, it does include its own 3D village for the PCs to explore. You can cut out and piece together a little cardboard Viking village. The name of the game for one of the Greyhawk adventures. What else we got down here? Spellfire. At last, a classic Forgotten Realms novel by the creator of Realms himself, and then later became a really bad collectible card game.
Yes.
I sometimes wonder if WotC didn't buy TSR just to make Spellfire go away.
I'll say no, but it's a good idea.
It's not an unreasonable theory for anybody who ever tried to play Spellfire.
No.
So, oh look, Buck Rogers is coming up. The Boxed Family board game.
We've had this conversation.
We have. That's why we're moving on. Revised Starship Combat for the Star Frontiers game. All right, listen. They had Nighthawks. You had Starship Combat, a good game of Starship Combat for the Star Frontiers game. If you were going to try to revise it in 2 pages...
That's the thing.
Come on now. What the hell are you thinking? Now, it does note down here that they are intentionally doing this to not have to use Nighthawks. In the Star Frontiers game, Starship Combat is played out using Nighthawks, etc., etc. So they are describing here's what happens within Nighthawks.
Well, it always speaks to what is a known problem in many genres of games, that link between the big picture and the little picture.
Yep. Now agreed. I will say, all right, layout nerdery here. It's nice that you're using the omegas as the little glyph at the end of the article. Make them transparent, or make the page the same color as the background of your omegas. That's lazy paste up, people. Lazy paste up. All right, let's move our way on here. I jumped too far ahead. New kicks in martial arts. We're not talking about shoes. At the time, kicks was not yet slang for shoes. So, guide table for creating martial arts styles. Do we really need a table? Is that really what you needed?
It's what... I mean, same point. Again, you're trying to substitute style for a table for actual learning and study.
Yes.
All these styles, and I have had friends who are... My son's godfather is a fairly expert martial artist in several forms. Grandmaster, has his own school, all that stuff. He has never had a problem when we have role-played figuring out how to represent whatever weird style he's into within the framework of D&D. It's never been a problem. In part because it's narrative. And There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes. Well, and I will say, let's note that there have been a variety of charts and darts throughout this issue, some of which may seem a little silly, but there are far fewer of them than our earlier issues. You know, our issues back in the 40s were probably 30%, charts throughout the entire issue. We are getting away from a purely stats and number driven game and off to that more narrative game that you've been talking about.
But we are at the same time in a world of deep stupid, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
I mean, this is straight up the 4th stupid article in this episode.
Only 4? You sure we're not missing one somewhere?
Well, no, I'm saying 4.
Okay. I was curious if you were perhaps undershooting it.
That could be.
There is optical scanning available in the Gamer's Guide. Out in Louisville, Kentucky, convert your maps, drawings, and artwork, character specs, and histories into formats usable by most of today's microcomputers. When did we drop the word micro from computers?
It wasn't too long after this, actually. I mean, you're already in the late 80s, so it'd be in the early part of the 90s.
I mean, I guess the point at which mainframes ceased to be sort of a thing.
Right. That became the standard of what a computer is, and that shifted over.
Yeah. You want your own barbarian helmet? You can get it from the Troll King.
That's where I would have gone. Anyway.
All right, so what secret is out on the top secret SI game?
There's going to be one.
There already was one.
I thought that's what we were being told. What is the secret?
I think it's that there's a new one.
So we charge it. Game. What? Since the release of... No. This is top secret SI.
Yeah.
Which was at this point.
Yeah.
If you read through the article. So it's top secret SI, and they wanted to speed it up. This was one of those, once again, early attempts to change gaming away from first edition D&D, first edition top secret, make it lighter, more fun, crazy, the sort of thing that brought us to Savage Worlds. Here it is.
Yep.
And boy, you talk about something, folks. When you're writing, try to write such that what you write may be relevant for more than a minute and a half. Second column, second paragraph.
Of page 2 or page 1?
Page 1.
Hold on, I got to go back up. I was already down on the second page, so we could zoom in on the fact of what's the point.
and this is Warren Spector, so this is,
By contrast, the new top secret SI game?
Yeah. It's better suited to James Bond than Ollie North.
You know what's interesting? I'm betting Ollie North is one of those guys on the 40 line. He's north of the 40 line.
Oh, easy. Are you kidding? If you knew who Ollie, let's say you were a high school senior, right when this is happening, because this is current to this, because this was big when I was in grad school, so I think this is right now, basically.
This is the summer between my sophomore and junior years of high school.
So you're born 1970, no later.
72.
Yeah, no. I'm saying the people who understand this.
Well, I understood Ollie North, but that was because I was Dad was in the military. We were watching all that.
But I'm saying, let's be generous and assume that there's an aware high school senior who's 18 years old. That means he's born in 1970. That means as you and I are having this conversation, he's 48.
Yeah.
I think you almost got to be near 50.
Yeah. Yep. I do like that they give us what's the point over here. Let's actually get to a point. The point is some gamers have misunderstood what we were trying to do when we created Top Secret SI. Our goal in designing it was to create the most flexible modern role-playing game we could. We think we succeeded. Here's the counterpoint to that. Look on the next page. One RPG rule system links a universe of adventures.
Right.
Top Secret SI is talking about how it's the most flexible for modern role-playing, and yet the ad across the spread from it links, it's an RPG rule system that links Robotech, Mechanoids, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Heroes Unlimited, Ninjas and Super Spies. It's not GURPS. I mean, it's power gaming, so it's not GURPS, but still. I do find that ad placement a little curious. All right, we got to be getting toward the end here. Challenge yourself with the Master Moves strategy board games. These had to have sucked, right? I remember seeing the ads. I don't know that I've ever seen these games in real life. I mean, what was TSR? I guess they were going for the what we think of now as the mass media tabletop market, but seriously, what the hell? So,
yeah.
There's your boys from Task Force Games taking themselves seriously.
Well, that's kind of their move. Come on now. Well, it takes you seriously too.
Yeah.
But let's see what publishers will the new Task Force Games publisher will. So this was actually a reimagining of the company.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay,
I'm figuring some investor had bought somebody out, maybe.
could be, could be.
Roll of computers. There you
Well,
go.
this is a big one, and they did the Atari ST version. Too little time now, but oh my God, Dungeon Master. Oh, that ate up this summer for me. That's what I was playing. If you want to know what was going into my eyeballs, look at these pictures, and that's it. My brother and I fell head over heels in love. This game was atmospheric on the Amiga. It was creepy. It was a great dungeon crawl. It was a cool story. Just sheer unfettered brilliance. This is one of those games that if your friends had PCs, you made them go, "Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have anything this cool." I had so many PC friends, actually the Apple II GS friends, people like that were coming over going, "Our computers suck because of this game."
I was playing a whole lot of Wizardry on my Mac.
Yeah, this as you can probably tell, this thing, because the sound design alone, well, first of all, it had sound design, but it had 3D stereo sound design.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, this game was spooktacular. Great stuff.
There's some more screenshots. You got a beholder. The eyeball creature, we can't call it a beholder.
No, that belongs to somebody.
Yep.
And that SOB would follow you. This was one of those early games. Wizardry did it too. But this is one of those early games where the monster didn't patiently wait inside his dungeon room for you.
He went looking for you.
He had an AI. Kind of fun.
Upper right corner there, we've got the Apache in action.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, look, the Apaches had only been fielded for a year or two at this point, so this is fairly leading edge, which is kind of cool.
Well, and this is an announcement that this game, which was out for my Commodore 64, that this cutting-edge, straight-on, stone-cold, brilliant game Gunship was going to be available for the relatively then backwards PCs in there. And where did it go? I saw this. If you had a Hercules graphics card, that now you too could play this. No, in the day, you would play this game with the old Atari 2600 controller plugged into your Commodore 64.
Yep.
And oh wow. Yeah, oh wow.
All right, we're going to go for 5 stupid articles.
Yeah.
So, how much of life in the big cities of Gamma World do you think is cantina scene from Star Wars versus the middle movie of the Maze Runner series?
Look, it's the same point. If you love Gamma World, if you've played Gamma World, you are completely able to design a city in it.
Yes, and there is no possible die rolling chart combination for Gamma World that would come up with an appropriate level of absurdity to match Gamma World.
Great point. Yes.
Which was the point of Gamma World. So.
Right. So yep, that's 5.
You know, so in their defense, there are 0 charts in this article.
Right, because they do try to be more narrative, and I will give them credit for that. But it's still the same basic. This isn't the clever little one-shot, or maybe the story you hadn't heard, or all this other stuff. It's... Oh, God almighty.
Yeah. It is a good idea to play subplots into an adventure to lead PCs into future adventures.
Really?
Paging Captain Obvious.
Jess, thank you for penning that into an article for which I paid.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move off of that. Here's some role-playing reviews. So the Lankmar City of Adventure, also have that one. Cool. The problem with the Lankmar City of Adventure book is that it came out at the same time as the City System box for Forgotten Realms. And when you're a map whore, like most of us role-playing guys were at the time, you just didn't care about the Lankmar book near as much as you cared about the bed sheets worth of maps that you got from the City System box.
Well, the crazy thing about that is we're recording this in August of 2018. Lankmar is about to make its appearance in Savage Worlds.
Yes. So what they're looking at for their urban settings, City State of the Invincible Overlord, one of the original urban settings. We've got Lankmar, which was it was a solid book. It really was. It was a good setup. It suffered from being released at the same time as City System. You've got Curse, the generic City supplement from the boys over at Chaosium. Tulan of the Isles, also from Chaosium, so they're cannibalizing themselves there. And then, that we're done with the urban stuff. We've got a couple of short and sweets there. So, a couple of urban ones for you to check out at that point. Let's go see what are our short and sweets. AC-11, the Book of Wondrous Adventures, compiled by Bruce, our good buddy Bruce. Nice dude. Star Wars source book, because, you only need one at the time. There ain't but 3 movies to work with, right? The Star Warriors game, Darians. Gnomes 100, Dragon 0. All right. Mechanoid RPG free with any purchase of $10 or more. Palladium really wanted to get rid of those Mechanoid games, huh?
Sure, and you could get them at Gen Con.
Here's our convention calendar. We already know what's going on with Gen Con and Origins, so we probably don't need to spend a ton of time on that. So, the Game Fair update. There you are. Trying to hustle through this because we're well over 90 minutes at this point. All right, here's our Dragon Mirth. Oh, listen, darling, they're playing our song. So, I'm sorry, sir. Dozens of deadly quests aside, the rules are the rules. Yeah, not a ton in here that's just really making me chuckle. Maybe I'm just too old and jaded at this point. Perhaps. All right, Snarf Quest hasn't gone away, even though Wormy has. Larry's still cashing the Snarf Quest checks. All right. Here's the Dragonlance board game. How many times did you play this one?
Bunch. My brother was the Dragonlance guy. This is one of those things where by the time we were done with it, you were working really hard. If you take a look, you see all that plastic tchotchke in the center?
Yeah.
That stuff started to fall apart real good.
Yeah, I think we're a little better at product design these days to create better material.
We've got access to, there are companies that are kitted out to build this stuff.
Yes.
Those didn't exist back in 1988.
No.
The thing that I notice, and, kids these days, you'll never appreciate, look at the junk chips.
The elevation markers.
Those are horrible. Look at the horrible card design. I mean, that's just ugly. And, here you have a game that is illustrated by one of the great talents in fantasy art, where the books are, I mean. And so little of that beauty, that evocative art, that texture, that look came into the board game. No, this wasn't a bad game. I played it a couple dozen times, but wasn't broken or anything. But my goodness, not well presented.
Yeah, the product design has certainly come a long way.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm curious about with something like this, though, is given the laundry list of things that they could be republishing, why doesn't WotC dust off some of these old TSR intellectual properties that they still have and see if they can't make a go of this? The game was perfectly serviceable. It was undone by poor product design. It wouldn't take that much to clean this up and re-release it if you could get the product design straightened out. Are there really so many other ideas that are that off the charts great coming out of WotC these days that this isn't worth reinvestigating?
This is remember, well, the answer to your question is, of course, no. They don't have that much.
Yeah.
But, board gaming is weird right now. We're clearly in a golden age, if not a platinum age, with the absurd bounty that we get to pick through, historical and not. But at the same time, the logic of it, I mean, look, I'm excited. Of course, Restoration Games announced at Gen Con, it's re-releasing, reimagining Dark freaking Tower. Dark Tower is a really bad game. But oh my god, that tower.
Yeah.
When you were a kid, something we were talking about in one of the GrogCasts about how I hate Napoleon Total War in concept.
Yes.
But it all comes together and you're like, oh, so pretty. You know, and it's the same thing with Dark Tower. It's like, oh, you're so stupid. You are so stupid. But the tower and fighting brigands and the dragon, and there was nothing like it at the time. So I don't know what their logic is, but I take your point. I would not hate seeing this out again in a nice, fresh coat of paint and maybe a Kickstarter to get some cool minis, all that stuff.
Which one's going to be taller? The tower that is released with the stretch goal of that Kickstarter, or your dice tower you brought home from Origins with all
my dice tower is taller,
modular pieces?
Well, it's funny because they interviewed the guy who's behind Restoration Games, and he said, look, let's be clear about a couple of things. I'm not giving that original tower back because that technology is dead. You would hate it. And we would. Second, it's not going to be an app. It's not going to be your phone or an iPad. He's going to come up with some sort of crazy analog tower.
Yeah.
And given as he's the guy that gave us the Fireball Island thing.
I wouldn't bet against it.
Right.
All right, you can win the battle for the 25th century because, that's what kids those days wanted to do.
This game was bad. This game is bad.
Well, it was a bad game on a misplaced media license that they clearly spent too much money on. When people want to know why TSR went broke in the early 90s, it's crap like this.
Yeah, this game is broken. A couple of rules don't work. And if you think TI4 takes too long for what it is, play this someday. I dare you. Good luck.
Well, but the other problem with it is it's got the Buck Rogers veneer on it over the top, but it doesn't feel like a Buck Rogers game.
No heavens. No, it's pulpy and swashbuckling. Frankly, and that's one of the glories to go back to the Assault on Hoth game.
It felt like Star Wars.
Yes, when those speeders came in and could roar over the cliffs, they're the only ones that could, and you get the reinforcement card, and they could come in and attack the AT-ATs and harpoon it. Felt like it. It was great. Not this.
No. This year's only hardcover for AD&D, which tells you what was going on with AD&D at the time.
Right.
There's your Greyhawk Adventures. So, compatible with AD&D and the second edition of the AD&D system that's scheduled for release in spring of '89. So they're already releasing content that will be future compatible once they get around to releasing second edition. That's your back cover. All right, Dragon 136.
Hated it.
I'm not sure you hated this as much as I hated 91, but it's probably close.
Well, and again, it's not how it's laid out. It's not what was going on at the time in gaming. This is nonsense.
Yeah, there's some absurd articles in there.
This was filled with nonsense.
Yep. But, at the time it was the only nonsense you had access to, so you kind of had to go with it.
I just flipped over to the reviews for Buck Rogers in the 25th century. So far, Battles for the 25th century, my favorite review so far, great parts for other space games.
That's about perfect. We should probably close on that note, huh?
Sounds great.
Awesome.